Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Asad Lalji. Welcome to the next live session of Avid Online. And for those joining us for the first time, a special welcome to you. Please refer to the chat box for more information about Avid Learning and our platform. Avid Online is our digital innovative learning campaign that we launched during lockdown on the 1st of April 2020. So now a year plus and 260 programs later, including our premier series at the Royal Opera House, we say that although 2020 challenged us in unprecedented ways, we managed to stay positive, relevant, engaged, and engaging, and we continue to champion and bring to our audiences the best of arts and culture while supporting the creative communities and facilitating growth and dialogue within the arts ecosystem. This brings me to our evening session. Live History India and Avid Learning present Cultural Capitals, Jaipur. The second session of Cultural Capitals, the future legacy of Indian cities. This series aims to celebrate a wider swath of India's great cities, their legacy, and how they continue to be vibrant centers of culture. Allow me to introduce our speakers for the evening. Creative Director, Amrapali Jewels, and contributor, Amrapali Museum, Tarang Arora, Director, Jaipur Rugs, Yogesh Chaudhary, and Jaipur Restauranteur, Dushyant Singh. They will be in conversation with our moderator, author and co-founder and editor of Live History India, Menon. For more about each of our very accomplished speakers, please refer to their impressive bios that have been posted in the chat section. You know, cultural custodians like Sanjoy Roy and Teamworks Arts have put Jaipur on the world's cultural stage. Work done by Mala Singh and others have also helped do that. The purpose of this series was to look at the next generation of ambassadors who are doing some really interesting, revolutionary, path-breaking work. So we have these speakers and experts who will look at Jaipur through a varied lens. The city's growing art scene, the world-renowned architectural heritage juxtaposed with modern and contemporary urban design, and the emergence as a cultural hub. Please note that the session will last 75 minutes and will be followed by a 15-minute Q&A in which the speakers will be taking questions. So do keep them ready, keep posting them in the Q&A box throughout. On that note, thank you once again for tuning in. Over to you, Minnie, and look forward to a fascinating session about the Pink City.
Thanks, Asad, and good evening and a warm welcome to everybody. It's really wonderful to talk about Jaipur because it is a city that gets even more exciting each time you go to it. And that's saying a lot because it's a city that has been recognized as a craft and art center by UNESCO. It has been recognized as the World Heritage City. It's a city that each one of us has been to multiple times, I'm sure. And yet, every time you go to that city, there is something about it that completely wows you. Asad, of course, spoke about our guests, and I'm very excited to welcome each one of them because in many ways, they represent the spirit of that city of carrying forward a legacy, innovating, being really cool about it, and helping create the buzz around Jaipur. Of course, it is also a city that has done very well for itself. It's savvy because it's used its proximity to Delhi. It has constantly innovated itself. And as Asad mentioned, new additions like the Jaipur Lit Fest, of course, have put Jaipur again back in the limelight for multiple reasons. So in many ways, each layer adds to the dimensions of the city. So I'm very excited to have Tarang, Yogesh, and Dushyant with us today. Thanks so much for joining us. Tarang, I'm going to start with you. The Amrapali Museum is just gorgeous. The work that you've done there is fabulous. But I'm going to take a step back because you're also somebody who was born and brought up in Jaipur. So I'm going to ask you how the city of Jaipur has shaped you and how are you shaping it by taking forward of the legacy that you have kind of taken on?
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me on this platform and being one of the ambassadors of Jaipur, as you and Asad mentioned before. I think I'm just going to take you back to what Jaipur was conceptualized at. You know, we all know Savai Jai Singh, who made Jaipur or planned Jaipur, was done on a very simple grid format, or only cities are Jaipur and New York in the grid format, which was made, or it was made with a game chopper which was played, right? So we have Badi Chopper, we have Choti Chopper. Had the auspicious angle to it. So we have Chand Pole and we have Suraj Pole and things like that. So I think being born in a city like this, which has a heritage to give, and we as being born here and growing up here, listening to all these stories, and obviously being in the business, and seeing my dad and uncle always talking about these stories, I think made us always appreciate what Jaipur had or what Rajasthan had. Appreciate the fact that whatever we are going to do here is has to only reflect the best, and we have to keep it, and we have to only make it. We have to show it to the world. So what we have done, for example, with Amrapali, be it in Harrods or be it on an international platform, we have taken the art and culture of jewelry making to the world, and that is something which we have learned. Jaipur, being a very small city, has always shaped me as a humble, kind individual. Being a very small city, and going back to things like in Jaipur, when we have festivals, be it Diwali, be it Holi, the celebrations are over the top. And it's not just about these festivals which are celebrated across the country. We have Tej, we have Gangor. So women always need to dress up very well. They need to adorn themselves very well. Hence the requirement of reinventing design regularly. And that is what Jaipur has always been about. The good part is that it has been recognized as an international design hub. And we have had international designers coming to Jaipur, be it in clothing, be it in textile, be it in carpet, which I'm sure Yogesh is going to talk about, and Dushyant about food. We have all collaborated with international designers, and we have tried to take this Jaipur craftsmanship, Jaipur soul, now redone, repackaged for the international clientele, for the international version for everyone. So I think that is what Jaipur has been all about for me, yeah.
Right. You had a presentation to share, Tarang, so I'm hoping that you will do that in the next answer, because it kind of gives us a sense of the kind of work that Tarang is doing through Amrapali. But maybe we could go to that because I think Yogesh has kind of slipped out. I can't see him on the screen. So Tarang, yeah, now I can. Thanks.
Okay.
So Yogesh, let me come to you straight up. You have Jaipur in the very name of your company. It's called Jaipur. And, in Jaipur, there's so many influences. It's the hot bed of all sorts of artworks. It's where the karkhanas were around the city palace. So I'm going to ask you how the city has shaped you and how it is represented through your work.
Oh, absolutely. So, I was actually born in Jaipur, and when I was 4 years old, we moved to the tribal belt of Gujarat. So I ended up spending then 9 years until I was 13 in Gujarat. And then when I came back, and we were in a very small town. So I was to spend my summer holidays coming back to Jaipur. So it was like this place where you go and have good food and chat and, drive around the car. And when I moved back, I hadn't really seen Jaipur, you haven't really lived there. And my father, because of exports, we had a lot of international people coming. And I sort of became the tour guide, which meaning that, I would go on trips with these people to show them Jaipur around. Yeah. And I think that's when I really learned about Jaipur myself, that, there is so much rich history within the city. Plus also one of my father's best friend, he actually writes about the painted walls in Shekhawati region and Jaipur. So he took us to places which, most of the people in Jaipur themselves don't know. Yeah. So there's a lot of things just around Jaipur. So I was very lucky to see Jaipur from a very different perspective. And, that really helped kind of shape the entire, thing about Jaipur being at a very special location, city, in terms of, how it was different from other places, So I think, we had a debate a lot of times that should we keep the name Jaipur or not? because, it has a lot of copyright and other issues. But then we, kind of stuck to it because we realized that it kind of stands so much for what we do and what the city represents. So, we've decided to take and use the name Jaipur Rugs, because I think Jaipur is a very interesting city where there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of traditional art. Tarang talked about a lot of these things where we celebrate Diwali like usually, and there's a lot that happens. But at the same time, because of all these international people coming in, it's a very forward city as well. So there's some of the most interesting things happening around the country, or the world rather, are also coming from Jaipur. So that confluence of how we say Istanbul is between Europe and Asia. I think Jaipur is that to India, and we are lucky to be here and doing some interesting work that we can take to the world.
That's a lovely way of putting it, Yogesh. It's the bridge really between between the Westerners who come there, because it is really one of the cities that draws the maximum number of tourists in India, between Agra, Delhi, and Jaipur. We've done a lot of work on Jaipur, and Jaipur has become a brand. As I said, it's got its heritage, it's got its crafts, it's got an array of color and festivals. But it also has food, which is not that well known. And that's where I'm going to get Dushyant in. Dushyant, talk to anybody about Jaipur and they'll talk about lal mas and they'll talk about street food, right? But you're going far, far beyond those cliches, if I can use that word, to really put a different kind of cuisine out there for people, both locals and international tourists or visitors. So take us through your own journey, how you started walking down this path and how the city has influenced your work.
So, to be honest, I've seen the city changing in so many years. And I would say that the biggest change what I've seen is last 10 years. Because before that, the changes were not coming that fast in our industry. And we had like very nice restaurants like Nero's, Surya Mahal, Copper Chimney, and they have passed through the time, and they've been there like for almost 50, 60 years. But I was very lucky enough, because Yogesh just mentioned about Turkey. So I was living in Turkey in the year 2007. And before that, to be honest, I never had an idea in my entire childhood that I want to open something like a restaurant. So when I was there, I really liked the cafe culture. I was going out with my friends, and I always thought that whenever I'll get back to my own city, I want to bring this cafe culture and restaurant culture. Because earlier, I would say that restaurant was only meant to go out and eat. But now when you move out, restaurant is like an experience. You go out and you focus on each and everything, how you're greeted, how your plating is being done, what kind of food is being served. And I think now people are very smarter than what they were before now, because everyone has a lot of access to social media. So they know what is right and what is wrong, what is being served in different parts of the world and what is being served here. But as you said, that lal mas, yes, I love my local cuisines, and I always tell to my friends and friends of friends who are not from Rajasthan that Rajasthan has a lot more to offer other than lal mas. And I think lal mas, which is very highly appreciated from Rajasthan, you don't have a recipe for it. A mutton curry which is being made in Rajasthan with different spices is called lal mas. So though the recipe came from Jodhpur, but I think every household, they have their own way of making that recipe. While coming to your question, that when I thought of opening my restaurants in Jaipur, so I always thought of getting something which has a latent demand, which has not been experimented before in our city. So when I was doing it, many people said that it would not work in Jaipur. But I think all my restaurants and whatever I've done in the food, I've always taken a big risk. But I knew that if my product is good, my idea is good, people will gonna take it. So I think this I could only do in last 10 years, because the Jaipur is changing. And I think if I go before 10 years, the difference between Jaipur and Delhi was much more than what it's between. Like I would say, Jaipur and New York are even closer than what Jaipur was Delhi 10 years back. So I can see that now we have access to everything, and Jaipur is as good as any city in the world. And I love being here.
Right. I wish we could all travel over there. Actually, next time we should do a live event over there. Actually, that would be
Please,
fun.
I will take you for a food tour.
Absolutely. We will join all of you on tours there. Tarang, I'm going to come to you. A very interesting facet that Dushyant spoke about was the fact that in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of change in Jaipur. It's also become a very big hub for people who want careers in the arts and, museums, etc., because there's so much of stuff happening over there. But I'm going to ask you, what is a bigger influence in Jaipur for people like you? Is it the fact that it gets so much of international attention, or the fact that it is changing so rapidly? There are two streams over here, right? Because this is a very interesting space, because not only are you catering to a very diverse community that comes into Jaipur every year, but you're also catering to a very changing populace, youngsters who would have demands, patrons and collectors who want to start looking at different facets of art. So how are these two strains parallelly running in a city like Jaipur?
I think what I wanted to also add before answering this is that Jaipur has a very important part, which you said. I mean, every city has its important bits, which be it manufacturing, be it mining. The three main industry which I feel is very important, which runs this whole cultural part, is obviously the crafts industry. Then the karigars which we have, and these karigars which we have are not necessarily from Jaipur. They could be from anywhere in the country, which are migrating to Jaipur and keeping the craft alive, getting trained in Jaipur. And then the third is obviously tourism. So I think what is very important for us to give to the world the new Jaipur, or the new designs of Jaipur, is to have all these three in place. If my PPT can be shared, I have a small, I have a photograph of what jewelry pieces would usually look like when, this one. And the whole idea here, which I was trying to say before as well, is that, on the left we see on the top a lady wearing a heavy piece of jewelry, and then on the right it's the same craftsmanship of Jarao, or the Jarai jewelry, and it's been put like simple pendants for everyday use. The Generation Z or millennials or whatever you want to call the young gen today, do not necessarily want to wear a piece of jewelry which is going to be worn 5 times in their life. They want to wear a piece of jewelry which can be worn every day. So this is the new adaptation, which is very important for Jaipur to evolve, and the same thing can be shown to an international buyer. It's very difficult for an international client to usually buy or to appreciate something which is on the left, because it's too much, and on something which is on the right is something which they can love, they can gift, they can have a souvenir, they can have a memory of what Jaipur is all about. And I think that is what all of us in Jaipur are regularly doing, regularly learning and evolving ourselves. Obviously, the world has become a global market, a global village, right? Internet, obviously, what we are doing right now, for example, is sitting at different places and we are all together. It's the same kind of thing which works with art and with digitalization for jewelry or for imagery as well, because now people want more and more as they're able to see more and more. And the bottom, if you see, I've given an example of enameling, where we see the traditional form of enamel, and on the right hand side we have painting enamel. These are very two different ways of enameling. The left being very traditional, and on the right it is something which is extremely new, extremely it's not been done as much in the past as well, and something which we are now doing. When we are talking about always saying that how we are taking Jaipur internationally, we today are all competing with international brands. And sometimes I feel that there's an example which I often give, that if you're sitting in say I'm giving again an example of Harrods. You're sitting in the Harrods fine jewelry room. You take a ring from Harry Winston, and I try and sell you that Harry Winston ring in Bulgari as a client and a regular collector. You might be able to buy it as a Bulgari ring. But if I sell you an Amrapali ring in the Bulgari boutique, you will be like, what is this? This is something new. This has never been done. So it is a point of difference in our art, in our making, in our craft, which we all are trying to showcase to the world. In the next slide, there's a short video which shows that we have not just done enameling from the old enamel to the painting enamel, but we're doing it on fashion jewelry as well today, which is again a very different way and a very different idea to do, and then it's being very successful. So developing these things for the world, for the West, for the locals and for the West who are regularly growing. Even the colors which you see, they are not the regular colors which were all the time used in enameling, which are now being done today.
Right.
I don't know if I was audible there, but what I was trying to say was that the enameling colors also which we use today, they are not the usual enameling colors which were used in the past. We are today developing our own colors. We are developing our own mixes. In fact, my enameling head was quite upset with me, but that we have not been able to do this because of lockdown, and we've not been able to source them from different parts of what we do. But what I'm trying to say is that this constant evolution only helps us, and that is not possible until and unless the international design fraternity comes to Jaipur, talks to us, tells us what's going on internationally, or we have a representation outside and we learn from this outside regularly, and that's when these ideas flow and they come through.
So that's a perfect mixture of the traditional and the modern sensibility in many senses, right? And I personally feel that is very important for crafts to survive, because it's important to really innovate. And that's the story of Indian art and Indian weaves, for instance, the fact that they're not static and kind of caught in a time warp. It is something that has evolved over a period of time. And you can see that in many of our vibrant traditions. Yogesh, I'm going to ask you, how does this particular influence of an international design, color palette, etc., work for you? Because I know you two are working a lot with international designers. And in many senses, you're keeping the traditional in a new format. So what is that innovation that you're doing there?
Sure. I mean, I also have a presentation. I think if you can share, there's two maybe things that I'll share about, very, very contrasting. So one, obviously, as Tarang mentioned, that all these international designers have had a huge impact on the way we look at even our own product, right? So one of our collections is called Man Chaha. Now, this is usually we always design as a business, and then we ask the weavers to make whatever we want to get made. Man Chaha was an experiment for the first time where we were asking these artisans to make whatever they wanted to wish, and make. And funnily, some of these rugs are going to the best homes in the world. We call it, untamed fashion from the villages. So every piece is unique. And can you go to the third slide? Maybe after, next, one more ahead. Yeah. So, like one of these rugs that you see here, I mean, so these artisans are actually making things that they see around their village. And if you go to the next slide, I've taken just small example. If you look at this one rug in the middle, this is a true story of 3 artisans making it. So, you see almost 3 columns in the rug. So there were three artisans who started to make this rug, and they were not getting well along when they started. And as they started to weave upwards, that's weave row by row, two of them started to get along well. So they started to talk to each other and they started to coordinate on their weaving and the design. And the third one was still not talking to the other two. Now Diwali came and this third one was sick. So these two went and took sweets and chai for him, they all became friends. And after that, you see all three of them kind of coordinating. So just this one rug tells this beautiful story of differences between these three people and how they got along. What our design team, my sister who heads the design team, Kavita, did was she took the design, which was in like hundreds of colors, and just took digitalized it and made it in two colors. Now this rug, we've made in several colors. So we've taken a design coming from the village, from weavers, who've not seen the world, and it's in our top-selling designs. I talk about some of the top people in the world. They love the story and they want to put this rug in their home. And if you go to the next one, on the other hand, just to completely contrast and adding to what you were saying earlier, now this collection, on the right, you see this Italian guy, his name is Matteo Cibic, and we did a collection with him, which is now reverse, completely inspired by the Jaipur city. So it has, the elements, architectural elements of Jaipur. It has the kings, with the mustaches and, temple, flags to mountains and, a lot of the ghungars and, the door shutters from the pink city. So the entire collection is inspired by Jaipur and its history and culture, but done it in a very modernized, chic way. So I think it's always pulling one towards the other, where you kind of try to go back to your roots, but then you're also going forward. And I think the magic really lies for us as people in Jaipur in really connecting these two. So you have something that is very, as Tarang was saying, with the new millennial, how do you make a product for them, but then how do you even keep it connected to your roots? So you tell a story of the root, but you completely modernize it so that, they kind of fall in love with what they see, rather than just creating those traditional patterns. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Right. And that also is an important new way of looking at Indian art, right? It's the stories behind it. It's the stories that make something precious, something relatable, and something that has a global audience. And I think that's another thing that Jaipur does very well. It tells stories very well. And, I think that's really a fabulous lesson to learn from the city. Dushyant, cuisines are also like art, right? You have different flavors coming in like different threads. And over there too, you have the traditional palate, which is the taste, with modern sensibilities. And I'm going to ask you, you run three very popular restaurant chains in Jaipur. How are you looking at cuisines as a cross-cultural platform? Which way are you veering? More towards the traditional or the modern taste buds?
So I have three restaurants in the city, and they all are completely different from each other. So what I've realized that in last 10 years, when I started my career in the restaurant industry, I got into the nerve of Jaipur, and I thought, what is something which Jaipur is missing, So when I opened my restaurant, which is called On the House, can I have the slides, please? So yeah, here you can see a picture each of all my three restaurants. So my first restaurant, which is On the House, it was opened almost 10 years back. And so what Jaipur was missing that time, Jaipur had restaurants there, but all were traditional restaurants. They all were serving Indian dishes, and primarily, no offense, but they all were doing similar kind of food, and so I wanted to bring in a culture of what American diner do, So I wanted to bring different food like from around the world and experiment them in Jaipur. So because I knew that the people from my generation, particularly, they have moved out of Jaipur either for their studies or work, and now when they want to come back to Jaipur, they already have an exposure to that kind of food. But there was no place where they could go and have that kind of food. So when I opened my first restaurant, I made few things which were not done in Jaipur before. Like there was no other place in Jaipur other than the 5-star hotels where you can go and go for a breakfast. So the very first restaurant in Jaipur, we started off at 8 a.m. in the morning. And for the very first year, we didn't have many people who were coming out and eating breakfast. But I think gradually the people started coming out and they could understand that, okay, breakfast is also an important meal. So this is how my first restaurant happened. And then I realized one thing, that Jaipur is not very big in terms of the kind of people I'm targeting at my restaurants. Everyone knew each other. It's a very close-knit society. So I thought, if whenever I will open my next restaurant, it would not be the same, because my restaurant lies in the heart of the city and people travel from all directions over there. And even now, when the traffic is almost 5 times than what it was a few years back, still you can reach anywhere in Jaipur in 20 or 25 minutes maximum. So I never wanted to repeat my concept by having more branches of the same one. So this is how OTH happened, which was a world cuisine. So we never had that kind of food before. And it got a very overwhelming response. So then I realized one thing, that people love what I do, in terms of food. So then when I was thinking of opening my other restaurant, so in 2018, I opened Rustic. So I knew that now the world cuisine has been done to death in India now. People are doing it in every corner of Jaipur. So I thought, in Rajasthan or anywhere in India, when we talk about the Indian food, I think in restaurants, you get those very heavy gravy food like butter chicken, dal makhani or korma and everything. And there's so much more to the Indian food than all these things. So I think the Indian food has been made very rich in last few years. So what I did, I called all my chefs and told them that forget whatever you know till now. And I want dishes which your moms are cooking in your home. So I had a chef who's from Uttaranchal. So I asked him, what do you eat at your home? I asked a chef from Bengal, what do you eat at your home? So we got the dishes from the villages of these states. And what we made it differently here, that we tried to serve Indian food like a continental platter. So it's an a la carte restaurant, but it's not like you order 2 portions of dal, 2 portions of paneer, and then you order breads. It's like we have a combinations. For example, if you're ordering a dal makhani, you have an Amritsari kulcha with it. If you're ordering Pahadi dal, we have a particular Pahadi roti with it. So we made a curated menu. And I was very surprised. I thought that it will take time for people to understand this cuisine, but coming back to it again, that I think in last few years, Jaipur people have become very experimental with their palate. So everything what we experimented with, I think people took it in a very, very nice way. And this is how Rustic happened. And the last restaurant which I opened, which is in 2019, 2020, just before the COVID happened, it's Lama. So it's a Pan-Asian food. And when I was doing my research, after Indian food, what Indians like the most is the Chinese. And I think when you talk about Pan-Asian, in a cities like Jaipur, people were all only experimenting with Chinese food. They were not talking about Vietnamese. They were not talking about Indonesian. They were not talking about Japanese, Burmese. So this is how the idea of Lama came in. And I think the timing of all my restaurants were very important, because if Lama was open when OTH was open like so many years back, that was not the right timing. So I think gradually people moved from a multi-cuisine restaurant to a specialized restaurant like Lama, where, so yeah, in so many years.
Right. Dushyant, of course, it's been a very tough 2 years for anybody in the business that you are in. So I do hope things get back to normal soon. But I'm going to ask you, revisit the question I asked you. I mean, what proportion of the Rustic food is Rajasthani food? Because what I'm getting from you is that the taste is very universal. I mean, if you see a Jaipur restaurant goer or a Delhi restaurant goer, there is a very great similarity, So consciously, how do you do that balance? I mean, is there no thought of going out and eating Rajasthani food, for instance, because you get so much of it at home? What is your sense of especially the younger restaurant goer?
like all my three restaurants are in the residential area where most of our target market is the locals. They are the locals, and what I've seen that mostly the Rajasthani food, because most of the people, they think that Rajasthani food, what they can make at home, is much better than what they can go out and eat, right? So, like, in fact, like, I don't remember when I go out and eat mutton anywhere outside my home, or maybe I'm very excited to have mutton at one of my friends' place, but I will never go to a restaurant and order lal mas because I know that my mom and the homes of my friends, they can make much better than what I'm going to get in the restaurants. So I think there are very less places in Jaipur which serve traditional Rajasthani food, like unlikely like Gujarat, where Gujarati people go out and they look for Gujarati food. But it's not in there in Rajasthan. I think Yogesh and Tarang will agree with this, that Rajasthani person will not go out and look for a Rajasthani food.
Right. And of course, in Bombay, I must tell you, in Mumbai, we have so many places which have fabulous Rajasthani thalis, right? It's also because I think we have people from across the country and they want to go and eat authentic food from their home. So it also is about the cosmopolitan nature of the workforce that comes in, for instance. But Tarang, I am going to ask you, this is a very interesting discussion line also because it tells us what youngsters in Jaipur are thinking, how are they aligned to their traditional what they are used to versus the new flavors that are coming out. In the Museum of Amrapali, have you been able to attract a lot of local people from Jaipur, or is it largely a tourist draw? How does the city relate to a cultural center like Amrapali, because it showcases so much of the local traditions as well?
So many, I joke about this with my dad and my uncle and the family, and I keep saying that I think Amrapali brand has done what it has done and achieved what it has is because of the museum. My dad and uncle were so passionate always about doing and creating and getting pieces together. When they both of them are from history backgrounds, and when they were starting the brand as 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds, and they wanted to go and understand what handicrafts were or what jewelry was, and there was not a single destination in the country where they could understand, learn, and know about it. And I think that is when they always had a thought that someday if we are successful and if we are able to, then we would like to have a museum where young designers can go and see jewelry and see artifacts, and that is what Amrapali Museum is all about today. Well, I have a small a collage of interesting pieces from all over Rajasthan. Jaipur, obviously being the capital, all of these things usually flew or came into Jaipur and was consumed in Jaipur. But one or two important facts which I want to also tell you guys is that when Sawai Jai Singh was planning Jaipur, he made 31 karkhanas in Jaipur, and these karkhanas. This is in the 17th century. 1727 is when Jaipur was built, right? The plan was that we will get the best artists from across the world. We had Middle Eastern artists coming into Jaipur, and they were given homes. They were given whatever they required to do this art. Hence, we have such a strong legacy, such a strong history in Jaipur. Be it miniature art, be it silver jewelry, be it enameling, and so on. So what I've done is I've just put this collage up here to kind of take you guys through what Jaipur or Rajasthan had to offer. So the first one, if you see, are sets of anklets, and they are from the Marwar region, and they're all worn together and called the kadiyan. The most interesting part is obviously that they're beautifully made, but the way you can just handle them, and you can put them on your dressing table, and then you can take them off and you open them up and you can wear them and then put them back in. And you see the way they have been made from being from narrow to wider, the shape of your leg or near your feet, right? Near the ankle. So I think that just doing all these details were something which was very interesting in Jaipur and was always thought of. The second example is from a necklace from Jaisalmer, Barmer is the kind of idea we get. You have to always also remember that what Jaipur or Rajasthan was doing, a lot of overflow was going on to Gujarat as well, this whole belt. So it is about the colors of Rajasthan, right? The colorful outfits which the women wear. It's about the jewelry which is colorful, and going back, colored stones, multiple of those, enameling, all the colors. This necklace which I'm going to talk about has multiple different stones, cut glass in it, again full of colors. So again, a great example of what we were representing it from those days, right? And this is a silver piece. And then in the third one, it's an anklet. And what you see, it's got, again, enamel 19th, 20th century. And it's from the Sindh region. So not just Gujarat, we were also influencing that area. So now we have some, I've not gotten those examples here, but we have examples of Sindh anklets and bracelets. And it has similar colors of blue and green. So whatever idea was done in whichever part of the state was actually traveling and influencing the state next to it as well. So that I think was also very interesting. Number 4 is Gattaji, is a portable Jain shrine, and again from Rajasthan. And the amazing part is that this is a traveling temple. So we have this concept is across the country. We have the same in the south as well with the Shivalingams, and this is something which Basra pearls being done, a very small one, so it's about this size. And there is Neminath, the 22nd Tirthankar, and Parshvanath, which is the 23rd Tirthankar on the right. Again, something very fascinating, very colorful, carrying your temples with you. Jaipur is also known as Little Kashi, by the way, because the amount of temples we have in Jaipur. So we again go back to the Savai Jai Singh time of being auspicious and calling Chandpol and all of those ideas. That is still remains, and we have ample amount of temples in the middle of the road. And those temples are not there because you can't take the temple down. Those temples are also there because there are generations of people or families who are still go to that temple every day in the morning or in the evening. So that is a very important part, I feel, as well. Number 5 is a necklace which is a very good example of miniature art in Rajasthan. Jaipur also was a very important center for that. This particular piece is from Udaipur. So we have Srinathji. And in the center of the pendant, there is a royalty or a head of the family which someone is wearing, the father or grandfather or someone. Just shows how painting was used in jewelry. Until today, I've not put the example up here, not just by us, but there are many people who do this in jewelry till today. And again, in silver jewelry, in gold jewelry, ganjivas or hand done miniature paintings on jewelry pieces. And number 6 and 8 are 2 examples of Theva art, which was done in Pratapgarh. Unfortunately, we do not have very good examples of these anymore. This art is one of the few ones which Rajasthan or Jaipur, which has been very good at conserving art, has not been able to do very well. And there are multiple reasons for that, including the right value to be achieved for the art from the clients today. Also, it is very fragile, so it breaks very easily because it's done on glass. And so these are the kind of issues which we still feel there are with certain arts when we look at the crafted pieces. And then the last is the 7th number, which is a spice box, and it's about 1850. This particular box, there is another example of this box in the Vienna Museum, which is, I think, is one of the finest works of doing enameling on silver jewelry in 1850, which you have to understand in those days, enameling, and still today, but the temperature which enameling had to be done, which was all natural enamel, glass enamel, had to be baked. Now, temperature of silver and gold and enamel, how it comes on silver was very difficult. Enamel it comes very well or represents very well. The color represents very well on gold. Doing this on silver was very, very difficult. So I think, I mean, this is in very short, in a very rapid way, I could put together the colors of Rajasthan or the colors of Jaipur and different arts which were there, which till today we try and conserve as much as we can in the city. And I think one more thing which I want to add is, the idea of Amrapali Museum has always been for my dad and uncle what they've also taught us always, and they always tell us as well, which is me, my sister, my wife, is you learn, then you earn, and then you return. And that was the point where they felt that, we have learned from the city, we have obviously earned from the city, and give, and now it's time to give back. So to be proud to be given employment to 2,000 individuals, which gives shelter, food to 6,000 individuals is what we estimate, right? To be able to conserve the art and to package it in a very international way for designers to come in, for a 17-year-old to come in who's interested in designing, which totals up to about 4,000 pieces we have in the museum. So yeah, I mean that's a small package about museum.
Yeah. These are, of course, exquisite pieces. And what is amazing about Amrapali, and we had your dad, by the way, on Live History India a couple of months back, is also the story, like he said, of returning the design sensibilities and chronicling the design sensibilities in different parts of India. And this is just the bits that you're seeing from Jaipur or inspired by Jaipur and Rajasthan. There's a whole body of work out there. And really, if you look beyond the geographical boundaries that we have in our mind today, Jaipur, Rajasthan, Singh, Gujarat, these were areas of free-moving tribes, and the design sensibilities that you'll find over here are just exquisite. So, I mean, these are fabulous examples. But, Yogesh, I'm going to touch upon one thing which is very close to my heart, and Tarang also mentioned. He spoke about the glass, painted glassware from Pratapgarh, which has not been able to survive as well as the others, simply because the realization of price was not there. They were not able to sell to the right people. And that's the story, other part of the story of Indian craft. So when we see people like, Tarang and Amrapali, people like you, who are taking the design sensibilities of traditional art forms and, marketing it well, positioning it well, telling the stories around it, that's the future of Indian art, really, Indian craft. So, because that will give the value to the artisan to actually come and be able to pursue his arts. You're doing a lot of work in the revival space, and I'm going to ask you about that. There is something that you're doing around Jaipur, as well as something called Postcard around Jaipur heritage. So please do take us through it, because how are you now getting the youngsters to feel involved with this work around revival?
Right. No, it's a great question. I mean, so one thing that, what you said, one of the reasons we've been successful is my father always said that, we have two sets of customers. So we have the people who buy, who are the carpet stores and wholesalers and all. But then he also treated the weavers who were making always as customers. So he said, I want to service them, which meant that, in carpet can take anywhere from 3 to 12 months to make, right? And a lot of times they run out of a certain color or a wool and all. So we were the best in the industry first to pay. My father decided to go direct always, so that, we were paying them a lot more. And because of, paying them higher wages, they did better quality. Now that made the brand Jaipur Rugs, right? Because a lot of the international carpet stores like to work only with us because they can rely on the product that we're supplying them, which is not the case in our, the biggest challenge with the craft industry is that in most cases, we're not really able to replicate things as they are, right? So a large American company would come and they want to place 10,000 pieces of a certain craft item. And the challenge is that, you'll have so many different versions that for them to put it on the website or standardize it in the store is impossible. So, and obviously there are multiple problems, multiple reasons why that is. But, I think with us, we've been lucky that, my father was so connected with these weavers that rather than just treating them like workers, we've always made them a part of the family. My father was one of the first ones who introduced this system of these, women mostly. So 85% of our 40,000 workforce in the villages is women. And so instead of paying them when the carpet got ready, we pay them every month on the amount of work they've done. We don't deduct penalties, so we would tell them, please do the work correctly. If they don't listen, we'll stop working with them. But we never got in the habit of using a lot of these industry practices, which in turn were kind of just hampering. It's like a mice and a cat situation where one is trying to catch the other, and in the end, both of them lose. And so here, my father always was, I think, forward thinking in terms of trying to build win-win. And I think in a lot of the crafts, that's been the problem. Like even today, I mean, we can never. I mean, we can replicate a piece 90, 95, 98%, but you'll never have like a replica carpet, like, 10, if you had to make 100, there'll be a little bit of variation always. So I think the secret sauce for us always was, treating the artisan, and bringing them in the process. So many years ago, we started a process of getting these artisans to come to our head office and our finishing centers to see the actual product. Now, the first time when we brought these guys, now this was the British Council, something incredible happened. So what happened is, when the first lot came, we can track each art pieces who made and where they came from. So when these women were coming to our office, we got the rugs that they'd made ready, in the showroom, so that they could see the rugs that they themselves made. Now, in the carpet, when you make it on the loom versus after finishing, there's a huge difference, because we cut the pile and it's we wash it, and it looks quite different. So when the ladies saw it for the first time, they would just keep touching the rug, right? So these are people who've spent months making the product, and they didn't know how the product felt. And when they started to see how it looked like, and we educated them where the product is going, we showed them customer images, images of their home, we suddenly realized that there's so much more communication that needs to be done both ends, right? So whenever we do this tour of women, and we started this as a program where we started to bring all of our viewers to our headquarters, and also our finishing units, is we realized that suddenly the number of mistakes that they were going went down drastically, because there was a inbuilt that they knew what they were making and where it was going.
Sense of ownership. You're saying, Tarang, I love the story that you told us about when Amrapali was on a Parisian, catwalk, and when you played that video for your artisans. Do tell us that story. I think it's a fabulous example, again, like Yogesh is mentioning, of the ownership that artisans feel when they see their products on the international stage.
So what I was sharing before was that we did a collaboration with Manish Arora, very celebrated Indian designer, dear friend, and he's never done jewelry, and we had never done a collaboration before, ever. And this was one of the first collaborations we did. This was in 2012-13, and he was one of the only Indian designers on Paris Fashion Week. And I still remember, because Manish being Manish, all psychedelic and crazy, and us being us, taking all the challenges which we can and never saying no to anything, we turned up with a collection which was quite eccentric, and our karigars were taking a very long time to make it. And we had Paris Fashion Week coming up in 5 days. We had to get the pieces out. There were overtime going on till about 1-2 o'clock. Obviously, this is not a good scenario in a workshop. But then when everything went well, and we went to the Paris Fashion Week, we had to travel with all these goods. We went to the Paris Fashion Week, and when they were wearing it, I just told the workshop, let's put a big screen and show all of this video to them. They should know what. So we have a lot of things which we are making for international buyers, but we're not allowed to show them technically, because they are their product as well. We are doing it for them. I'm sure Yogesh knows what I'm saying. You have your own product, and then you do something for someone. This was our own product, which was worn by models on the Paris Fashion Week runway, and these karigars were just blown away. They were blown away. I've never seen such happiness or such satisfaction, and satisfaction for us that they are satisfied and they are happy that all their time and all their effort has resulted in this. So I think that sense of ownership is very important, and I'm sure Yogesh will agree to it, and so would Dushyant, that who we are nobodies. I can be a creative director, and Yogesh can write whatever, and it's his weaver, it's my karigar, it's Dushyant's a chef, who are actual people behind everything. They are the ones who we need to support regularly. They are the ones who we need to look after regularly to, and then motivate them. So, yeah.
Right. That's a very wonderful point. And I think the future of arts and crafts and the continuance of this is really when not only do they get recognition, but they also get the value for the work that they're doing. We need to value our artisans and not look at them as just somebody who is supplying handmade products. I mean, it's the value of the handmade product that we need to look at. Dushyant, I'm going to shift track a little and ask you, what is the shape of things to come from your childhood growing up in Jaipur to now when you see youngsters, and as a restaurant owner, you do see the younger generation come in and out. What are you getting a sense of when you see the youngsters? How are they different from what you were? And what's the changing face of Jaipur going to be like?
I think when I see the youngsters today, I think we are from a different planet altogether. We were, I think, earlier there was a generation changing every, I think, 15, 20 years. Now I think the generation changes like in a year. I think I would say even lesser than that. And first of all, I would like to say something to Tarang, that I just love the way you told that learn, earn, and give it back to the society. And I think when you were telling that, I think somewhere down the line, whether it's Jaipur rugs or Amrapali or what we do in our organization is the same. And what I feel, and I'm not saying that because I'm from Jaipur, I don't find a single city in our country which is similar to Jaipur. Either you have cities like Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, which are very big, very busy, or you have smaller city. I think Jaipur is a right mix of a big city and a small city. That's why you have people here who are well-read, well-educated, well-traveled. So you can experiment with things. And at the same time, that whatever you would do, they would accept it. There is a strata of society which would appreciate to whatever you do. For example, I was talking to Sanjoy long back, and this is how I got an idea, and this is how I would like to connect to what Tarang said, that learn, earn, and give it back. So I become a part of Jaipur Literature Festival in year 2016. Since then, I've been the F&B curator for JLF Jaipur. And that was the time when I realized that if I think of any other city where we can have such a big festival like JLF, I don't find a single city other than Jaipur. Because Jaipur has an amazing connectivity, yet you cannot hold such a big festival in a city like Delhi or Bombay, because you cannot attract people from all over the world in those cities, because Jaipur has a heritage, Jaipur has a background, and doing a festival in a beautiful property like Digi Palace, having an evening in Amer, Jaigarh, I think you don't have these kind of places anywhere in any city. You may go to cities like Udaipur or Jodhpur, but I think you don't have much connectivity over there, and people don't have much to do during the evenings. So I would like to make people see the slide, one of the slides about the food festival we have done.
Should we revert back to that, Dushyant, as soon as Dhwani gets the slide?
Sure.
Very quickly, Tarang, while we are waiting for Dushyant's slide, how are you seeing the younger generation change? Very quickly.
I think younger generation is cosmopolitan. We are not from Jaipur anymore. We are, as I've said before, we are global citizens. We are accessible to everything. What Dushyant said, it is about heritage, doing everything in Jaipur. And we know, the good part is that we know the power of Jaipur. The youngsters today know what Jaipur is. People know what Jaipur royal family is. People know what the pink city is and why it was pink. So I think we have such a good marketing behind it already that all we have to say is Jaipur, and people automatically, it attracts people and it attracts that. So I think that is what, and that's why startup wise as well, which start with doing things with hand, is one of the highest in Jaipur. So yeah, I think that's right. What I think Dushyant's slide is here.
So I am going to ask Dushyant about the food festival also. Dushyant, you must take us through that and the idea behind it.
So after becoming the part of JLF, And I became a part of JLF in 2016, but I've been going to JLF since the very first season, which is 2010. What I've realized with time that Jaipur is a place which offers a lot to the people and expats and tourists which come to Jaipur. And what I've realized that Jaipur is a place where they were having other festivals as well. Like you have Big Tej Festival, Gangor Festival. And in last 10 years, if you see, or maybe little more than that, food has taken a front seat. And I think food is something which is celebrated everywhere. So this is how the concept of this food festival came to me, that I'm obsessive for traveling, and I travel to different countries, and that's the only thing for which I earn money. I just, as soon as I make money, I just want to travel. Though I've not been traveling for last 2 years, but I'm like, I feel like a jailed person, because I'm not able to travel these days. But when I was traveling, I met so many of chefs, so many of food writers, food bloggers from all around the world. So coming back to that whatever the knowledge I had, and because of the people of Jaipur, because of them, all the experiments I did with food, they welcomed it, and this is how I made my name, and whatever I am today is because of the people of Jaipur. So I thought of this festival where it's a very experience-based festival. It's a festival of its kind. It's not like other food festivals in the city, in India, I would say. So this is very experience-based, where we get in chefs from all around the world, and they do different curated events. So like last time when we did it in the year of 2019, before COVID, it was a 5-day festival where we did 16 events in different parts of Jaipur. We had chefs from Italy, France, Turkey. We had some local chefs as well. So we did curated events everywhere. And I remember Tarang's father, Rajiv uncle, he was came to support us in the season 1 and season 2. So I think Jaipur is now ready for all these things, and Jaipur can attract people from all around the world as well as from other parts of India. And during the season, people look at their calendar and fix things if there is something happening in a city here. So I think this is what Jaipur has been experiencing in last few years, and I'm sure there's a room for so many things like these in future too.
Absolutely. And this is a good point to get a lot of our audience questions as well before I have my closing questions to the panelists to really look ahead and see how they see the city shaping up in the future. But let me just go through some of the questions. Siddhi has asked the question that how do the speakers see the cultural change with respect to the UNESCO heritage tag and the craft city and art city tag? Has that made a change? Because I think the craft city tag came in 2015 and the heritage city tag came in 2019. So Yogesh, have you seen a discernible difference after that? I mean, Jaipur always attracted the tourists. Has it been more than before?
I mean, I think it's just gotten locked down since we got that. But what I feel is that it'll help two ways drastically, right? One is that a lot of people who didn't understand the importance of having all these unique buildings in the old city, now legally they cannot do it because of this becoming a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So there are a lot of restrictions that the government has that you can do and construct, I think, which is great, so that this the old town at least can be preserved for the coming hundreds of years, for new generations to see. And secondly, I think because of this, already we're getting a lot of people, but I feel that this is really going to bring in a lot more people to come and see and get more inspiration, globally.
Okay. Dushyant, this is one for you from an anonymous attendee who says, what do you think is the most popular cuisine with locals versus tourists?
I think now I would say that people are very much into, so after Indian food, I think Italian is something which people eat a lot in Jaipur, and that is something I would say it's now a staple diet for many, more than even dal chawal.
All right. And what is your most popular traditional food?
For me, I think if I have to eat something local, I think I would say I like Kair Sangri more than lal mas. So if I have to eat something really, really Rajasthani, I would go for, because I somehow eat a lot of greens. And so if I have to look something from the Rajasthani cuisine, I think if you go and see what is Kher sangri is a wild shrub which usually goats eat in the desert,
Mm.
So that is something I like, and it has got a very peculiar taste. And you would not believe that I know few chefs from all around the world. I knew a few French chefs. They are experimenting with Kher sangri and they were making spaghetti with it. And to be honest, it came out really well. So you can use some Indian things, like not Indian, I would say very, very Rajasthani, because I don't see anywhere else they eat this Kher sangri, because this can only be grown in desert and in high heat. So it can be experimented really, really well. And the taste of Kher is very, very close to, I would say, olives. So I think people can experiment by using Kher rather than olives in their dishes. So for me, I think the more like the best interesting dish from Rajasthan is Kher sangri, and that is something my to eat dish when I eat food from here.
Fantastic. That's something new that we've learned. And I'm sure many people in this group have already tasted it. Tarang, what are the other arts and crafts that are at risk? We've got another question coming on that. And what is being done to revive it specifically? If you can give us one or two examples of where you think, because we've spoken about all that is working, but we must also speak about the challenges. And I think it's very important. I think the glass, painted glassware, which you pointed out in Pratapgarh, it's sad that something like that is not available anymore. So what is fragile, according to you, that needs to be addressed?
I want to add something first to Yogesh's question, which you were saying. What is also happening with the UNESCO part is that the government is also getting evolved and trying to give, not just restrict that you cannot do anything in the old city, but also go out and get out there and do something to attract the tourists. Sculpture Park being one, Jawahar Kala Kendra, which is completely reinvented in the last few years. So there are a lot of those kind of initiatives which the government will eventually have to take also, which is also a positive part which we feel. Secondly, about what you're saying about dying arts, there are multiple of those. I feel one I feel very sad about myself is the Kathputlis. I see the state of that whole art, which is done in Rajasthan as well, is completely gone down. It's become very ordinary than what it used to be. Going back into South, we have shadow puppets, for example, things like that, and they still do them and they still have that kind of art there. So that is one part which I feel a bit not good about when I see it. When I see it on the street being sold, and the guy trying to haggle at $150 or $200 or $100 or whatever, that is not something nice. So that definitely being one part of the art which I'm not happy that it's going where it's going. Theva work, as I was telling you, is definitely something which comes from our part, which is also not doing as well. A lot of wood boxes and combination of wood and brass as well, which used to be a very important part back in the day, is also gone down today in handicraft world. I mean, there are multiple reasons for this. Price point, everyone is after price point. You're trying to get the best possible price. You lower the price, you use bad wood. You use bad wood, it's going to eventually, it's going to blow.
It is a vicious cycle that
it
brings
is exactly.
And so we are also helping, working with artisans across India to revive some of these arts. And we also feel that the best way to protect our artisans is really to make sure that they get their value for the work that they do, which is really important. I'm going to ask you about another question.
Exactly.
Sorry. Can I just, one question is, what needs to be done to protect the intangible heritage and the tangible heritage? Now, I know that Jaipur has been very blessed also because it's got a lot of political support across party lines to really revive and keep the legacy and the values alive in terms of heritage. And a lot of work has been done on that. We've also done extensive work on Jaipur, by the way. We recently put it on the world map with the Priceless Cities with a MasterCard initiative. And it was interesting because one of the 5 things that they wanted out of India was Jaipur, Jaipur, and Jaipur. So it just shows how the international community is so, keen on Jaipur. But what is being done to revive the intangible heritage, the cultural heritage? And in many ways, you guys are doing it, Yogesh. Since you're working with these artisans, we got Tarang to talk about the challenging parts. What are the challenging parts according to you?
I mean, I think Tarang kind of summed it up really well, I would say. I think our parents' generation is really still passing along, all the festivities and, all the celebrations. In fact, there are a few startups who are actually trying to convert some of these festivities into businesses. And I feel that, we don't want to overly commercialize it because we lose a lot of the essence of the art or the craft or the festivity. But I think, what we do as a business, for example, is that in most, like for Diwali, over the last many years, we always have foreign guests who come, and kind of stay with us and experience the entire festival. And I'm sure Tarang, must be similar with you and Dushyant and other people. So, Jaipur as a city, we have so many people that we welcome, during this to experience. And a lot of them always say that this was one of the most interesting experiences in their lives. Yeah, I think Tarang wants to add something here.
I just wanted to say, because of the art, the festival parts, what you were saying, Mini, what has happened is that I was talking about Diwali and Teej and Gangaur. Obviously, those are still there, and Muharrams and the whole Jhatiyan and everything still comes out. We have Sakrat, and Sakrat is kite flying, which is one of the only festivals celebrated the way it is celebrated in Jaipur. Secondly, from last 5, 6, 7 years, it has suddenly turned into a mini Diwali at the end of the day, because everyone's on their roofs, right? And then there are lanterns. There's about thousands and thousands of lanterns. Now, this has started from last, as I said, 6, 7 years ago, and now this is a new trend which is going to happen every year. And now, what I'm trying to say here is we love our festivals. Jaipur embraces those. We live for those. We love to invite people for those. We make food for those. We have events around it. So I think that is one of the first questions you asked. What has Jaipur given you, or what has happened when you have grown into the city? This is what Jaipur is all about. This is how we evolve in Jaipur, I would say, even in the festival side of it.
Right. So, Dushyant, I'm going to let you have the last word, because we are at the end of our time. So, is Jaipur producing enough Dushyants, Yogesh's, and Tarangs for the future? Because, I think what I love about this session is the enthusiasm and the passion with which each of you have spoken. And that kind of is something that, obviously is something that any city needs. So do you see a younger generation or people like you coming out and looking at different facets of this?
I think that now people have even better platforms, and the exposure is much more than what it used to be when we were in college. I remember that when me, Tarang or Yogesh, I think we all are almost a year or two apart from each other. So we all had to, the only exposure we could get, that either go to a bigger city to study or go out of India for your undergrad or postgrad things. But now the time has changed. The world is in your hands, like you have phones where you can connect anywhere. You can have your virtual courses, you can focus on things. So I think now they have a better exposure, and I'm sure that in times to come, you'll see more of us, or maybe people doing better than us, So, but I think the only thing which is missing these days, I may sound from a different generation, but I think we had lesser distractions. We had very less things to focus on. Now the thing is, people have thousands of things in front of them, and they have to choose. So right now, it's not about what you choose. Right now, the strategy should be what not to choose among all these things, And I want to add two things, that when you were talking about the UNESCO heritage site for Jaipur, I think the biggest difference what I have seen, and I'm sure Tarang and Yogesh would also agree to this, that I'm sure that tourism is something which has been there in Jaipur always, But after that, there's so many expats. They're thinking Jaipur as their retirement plan, or maybe living here and starting their own businesses. I know so many expats there. They're doing good in the food industry. They have their furniture businesses and everything. So Jaipur is also a place where they can think of settling down. So I think that is something, a security what this city is giving, which was not there before. We could only see tourists before. So now even I know, because I'm in a business where I see a lot of expats coming to me, and they all established here. They're married to Indians. They have their own families, and so they all are doing good. And one more thing I wanted to add here, that you were talking about the intangible dying arts from Rajasthan, and I think the biggest thing what I see, that the Rajasthan theater and cinema, like you go to any state, Gujarat has a very strong Gujarati cinema. You go to Punjab, you go to Maharashtra, but I haven't seen a good Rajasthani movies in 2 decades. I think none of us have seen that. And another thing is that Rajasthani literature, we don't see people coming up and doing something about it. The way we celebrate other regional cinemas, I think we should have a group of people, or maybe some intellectuals who can do something about it. Because I think when I was small, I still remember that I was going to some Rajasthani movies with my family. But now I think none of us, I don't remember any movies in last 15 years or 20 years maybe.
Well, the times are changing, and it is also a changing city with dynamics. But it's very important to keep it rooted to its traditions so that you can actually learn from it and expand. Really enjoyed this session, Tarang, Yogesh, and Dushyant. Hope to see a lot more of you on Live History India and on forums like this, because this is the kind of passion and energy that we need for our cities to become beacons for legacies in the future. You're creating the legacies as you go along. And that is the importance of this series. Thank you so much for joining us today. Asad, over to you.
Thank you, Minnie. Thank you to our panel for this wonderful session. From my perspective, I've been going to JLF every January for the past, I moved back in 2010, so 9 years. And it used to be my creative sojourn. And this is the first year I did not go. So I got a little bit of Jaipur, back for myself. But I still love eating my lal mas every time I go there at Nero. So I'm sorry, I do like the lal mas. But no, jokes aside, I mean, it's wonderful having such interesting speakers who are doing such fantastic work in their space and giving back as a result. And Minnie, obviously, it's always a pleasure. This is a great collaboration with Live History India and Avid. And thank you all for joining in. We have more interesting programs lined up, so stay tuned. Our next one is a virtual music film festival called Lights, Camera, Music. That's obviously in collaboration with the Royal Opera House, which was also on your MasterCard campaign. And then we're followed by the future legacy of Indian classical music and many, many more. But on that note, thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember that learning never stops. Good night and have a wonderful evening. Thank you guys once again.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.